Hello and welcome to Go Ballistic from the Scottish Sun. I'm David Friel and today I'm joined by Roger Hanna, our head of sport. Roger, we've gone all trading places. I don't know who's Dan Aykroyd and who's Eddie Murphy. But anyway, we'll get into the football. You spoke during the week before Celtic dismantled Slovan Bratislava. They're obviously facing championship opposition in the Premiership Cup this week in Falkirk, but 5-1 at home. Perfect start to the Champions League. What did you think?
Oh, sensational. I mean, a historic win. Not only is it the first time Celtic have won an opening group stage game, but it's the first they've scored 5 in the Champions League before. Brendan Rodgers told them before the game to have belief. I think they certainly showed they had the belief. Second in this table behind Bayern Munich. They can only blow it from here, David.
they certainly can. In terms of the game, there were so many standouts. Liam Scales won man of the match, but for me, Arne Engels was very eye-catching. Came at a big price tag, £11 million. You think he'd be at Celtic for 6 months, he's been outstanding. Yeah, and sometimes you get these players, the price tag's just a little bit too much for them. I don't think Arne Engels bothers with the price tag at all. He's looked terrific in the brief time he's been at Celtic so far. He at least looked sort of born for the occasion on Wednesday night in the Champions League. He is as cool as you like from the penalty spot, as you've seen a couple of times in the last week. And people, with the exception perhaps of our colleague Gareth Law, have already forgotten about Matt O'Reilly. The Celtic obviously have Dortmund next, then Atalanta after that. Watched Atalanta against Arsenal, very, very impressive Europa League winners. It was important for Celtic to get off the mark because the next 2 games do look a bit daunting. Yeah, and you can even throw in the next game after that against RB Leipzig. It's a difficult spell coming up from Celtic, so it was important. They started with 3 points. They then, on paper, look to have a better run. I think they've got, is it Bruges and Zagreb and Young Boys. So you would think if they perform the way they did on Wednesday night against Slovan, they'll pick up points in that run of 3 games and they can maybe even have secured that top 24 position. Don't think they'll stay in the top 2, but they might stay in the top 24. They could have that sewn up before they go to Villa Park on match day 8. In terms of Celtic, as we said, they go into the Premier Sports Cup now. You look at the bench the other night, it was so strong. Does Brendan Rodgers make wholesale changes? I was speaking to someone and said, it might only be 3 or 4. I could see Brendan Rodgers making it 8 or 9 easily, or is that too risky? I don't think it's too risky. Previous seasons I would probably have said yes, it is too risky. I think Brendan Rodgers will want to see the likes of Austin Trusty, the likes of Alec Vai, maybe even the likes of Ljami Sinisalo in goal. I think he'll make changes. You could completely change that front 3. You could go with Palma, Ida and Forrest, and you would have confidence that they'd be able to take on Falkirk. I think Paulo Bernardo will probably come into the middle of the park. Wouldn't surprise me to see Anthony Ralston getting a start. He came on late on in the game against Slovan, so I certainly could see 7 or 8 changes and not really weakening the team hugely. Falkirk have been so impressive the last 2 seasons. Do you give them any chance? Well, listen, you have to give them a chance. I've interviewed Darren Barr, the former Falkirk player, for tomorrow's Scottish Sun on the last time the teams met in the League Cup. Celtic were holders back in 2006 and a strong Falkirk team came, drew 0-0 after 90 minutes, 1-1 after 120 minutes, and they won in penalties. So there's always a chance. Falkirk have beaten Hearts in this competition already this season. They're top of the Championship. I think their invincible league run's now running at something like 43 games. They're very well drilled by John McGlynn, a friend of Brendan Rodgers. It will be a good game, but if Falkirk were to emerge victorious, it would be a major shock. Celtic play Sunday on Saturday night. It's happening. Rangers are back at Ibrox. There'll be 3.5 stands open as things stand. I think it's been 131 days, or will be by Saturday by the time Rangers have been at Ibrox. Do you see any upset again? And how important has it been for Philip Clement? Probably have a settled week, obviously all the turbulence off the pitch, and it's been a kind of stressful time probably at Rangers, but he said a week to focus, get his team ready after that win over Dundee United last weekend. Well, you said, can we see a shock? I like Dundee. I think Tony Docherty has got him really well drilled. They deserved to be in the top 6 last season. They're going to miss Luke McCowan, I think, in the middle of the park. I was surprised that they lost at Dingwall last Saturday. So if you had asked me prior to last Saturday, I would have thought Dundee would have a fighting chance at Ibrox, but they were disappointing last week up there. I still think they're coming to terms with not having McCowan in the middle of the park. Rangers, it wasn't a classic game at Tannadice last Sunday, but they got through it, they won it, they kept a clean sheet. It was exactly what they needed after that Old Firm defeat. And I just think with the lift
the fans, the players, the management will get from being back home, I would expect them to beat Dundee.
Will Rangers have an eye on Malmo at all next midweek, or is it all about fielding the strongest team to take care of Dundee?
I don't think Rangers are in a position where they can start resting players and looking ahead to future games. I think off the back of the start of the season, they've had out the Champions League, losing heavily at Celtic Park, dropping points at Tynecastle. I do think it really is one game at a time for Philippe Clement. They got through Tannadice last weekend, and the squad at the minute, unlike what we discussed about Celtic, the squad isn't strong enough for them to make half a dozen changes with one eye to the Europa League opener in Sweden on Thursday.
I'm a big man in first impressions with footballers. Hamza Igamane comes on against Celtic. I thought he was bright.
Yeah.
I thought he was absolutely outstanding when he came on against Dundee United at the weekend. He's got something different. I think he looks strong. He's got a good touch. I know there's a lot of Rangers fans looking for him to start against Dundee. Would you throw him in?
I don't think he will throw him in. I think Dessers will start, but it was noticeable that, having got just a few minutes at Celtic Park, you get a full half hour at Tannadice yesterday. Wouldn't surprise me, maybe even if he come on at half time, not necessarily for Dessers, it could be for any of the front three or the front four, depending on how they line up. He looks as if he's the type of player that the Rangers fans will immediately take to. He looks to have a good attitude, and at a time when Danilo's still out injured, Matondo's been out injured, I think Igamane's emergence might just be a very opportune time for Rangers.
Premier Sports Cup obviously takes priority this weekend. We do have some Premiership games, and one of them that stands out a mile for me is St Mirren against Hearts. I was at St Mirren last weekend. What a game it was. It was unbelievable drama, unbelievable excitement. I think Steven Naismith, the Hearts manager, going to Paisley would just take any kind of 1-0 win. Can he survive another week without a win?
Well, I spoke with Robert Grieve about this on the Coffee Club podcast in midweek. I think the Hearts board need to stay strong. I think they need to back Steven Naismith. I don't see any point in dispensing with Steven Naismith's services because of a bad run of form. But any manager will tell you, eventually a bad run of form reaches a stage where there is no going back. Hearts, I thought they started brightly against Rangers, ironically, in the first day of the season, but since then it's just been defeat upon defeat upon defeat. We're now in the second half of September, the bottom of the Premiership. They're out, as we mentioned, of the Premier Sports Cup, losing to Falkirk. They were out of the Europa League, relegated into the Conference League, and as you sometimes find, the natives are restless.
Roger, thanks as always for your time.
I'm now joined by Jim Delahunt, the top tipster from the Scottish Sun. Jim, I know you've got a busy couple of days down in Ayr for the Gold Cup and everything that goes with it, but there's also football on the card. If we can start with the Friday night game, Motherwell against Dundee United, an absolute cracker. What's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it's a real good game, isn't it? And Dundee United, having played very, very well against Rangers last weekend, despite losing by that single goal to Tom Lawrence, I think they'll fancy their chances of doing some damage down at Fir Park. But Motherwell are playing well, David, you know that. And I think this could be a tight one. I wouldn't be at all surprised if this was a draw at 90 minutes. And that price is showing up about 5-2 at the moment. If you weren't to back Motherwell, they're the 5-4 favourites. Dundee United 15-8. So as you can see, that is very tight. I'll just sit in the fence on this one, although I'll be a bit more expansive later, and I'll go for the draw.
There's two Saturday night games in the Cup. If we start at Pittodrie, we've spoken every week pretty much about the Jimmy Tilleen juggernaut. It keeps going. Spartans, I actually watched them in the last round against Ross County. They were outstanding. They won that game, but that's a really daunting one up at Pittodrie for them.
It really is, and I mean, we take our hats off, our collective hats off to Spartans. What a season they're having. But Aberdeen really should be thinking about winning this and winning this by a few goals. We can't fault anything that Jimmy Tilleen has done so far this season, David. The way I look at this game, Aberdeen are 1-8. We're not going to get rich backing them at that price, and even in the accumulators, it's only a 12.5% uplift. So I'd be looking at maybe Aberdeen with a -3 handicap in this one, in the hope that they might score 4. They might have an opportunity to score a few goals in front of their own fans at Pittodrie on Saturday night. So I wouldn't give you a price because all the bookies are different on these handicaps. But if you're looking around and looking for maybe Aberdeen -3, it might make it a bit more worthwhile.
The other Saturday night game, Rangers back at Ibrox, first time since May. I think it's going to be a decent crowd. Up against a very good Dundee team. Also, it was a bit of a shock last week against Ross County. Rangers beating Dundee United. I think they get the job done pretty professionally. Do you think they're going to follow that up with another win over Dundee opposition?
I would have thought so, David. I really think they'll beat the other Dundee team on Saturday at 5:30. Again, they're short. They're not as short as Aberdeen. They're 1-5, so that's a 20% markup if you're putting them into your ACCAs. Dundee 11-1, 12-1. That's a big price, actually, given that how well Tony Docherty's side have been playing. But I don't fancy them to win this. I don't even fancy them to get the draw. I would think that Rangers, in front of that big crowd, with all the controversy surrounding that stadium upgrade, etc., I think they've got to impress. I think that'll be hammered into the players by the coach. And I suspect Rangers will win this one. I wouldn't predict a barrel load of goals here. I'll just take Rangers to win the game against Dundee on Saturday night.
Celtic go from Champions League opposition to Championship opposition on Sunday. Falkirk, have been done amazing under John McGlynn. What a job he's done there. You'd imagine Celtic will make changes. Jim Brendan Rodgers got such a big squad. Do you see that having any impact on the outcome? Celtic, I'm assuming, are heavy favourites for this one.
They're heavy favourites, David. They're 1-14 to win the game, so there's no surprise there. Falkirk, I think you can get as big as 28-1 if you really fancy the biggest shock of the season by Falkirk winning there. But of course, they are League One champions. They're top of the Championship, so Brendan Rodgers, knowing John McGlynn as well as he does, won't be underrating this Falkirk side. He will change the players. He'll rotate his squad for this one after the 5-1 win against Bratislava. But whatever side Celtic put out, they're going to win this game, aren't they? The angle I'm looking for here, given the fact that Celtic range between 1-12 and 1-20, is Celtic to win the game to 0. So you're betting on Celtic's defence holding out against the leaders in the Championship, and Celtic to win the game to 0, 4-7. I think that's a good price.
We spoke about the Cup, but there are two fascinating games in the Premiership this weekend. I'm heading to Dingwall. I'm on the long road north to see Ross County take on St Johnstone. An unbelievable week for St Johnstone. We wish Adam Webb all the best in his recovery from ill health. Craig Levein sacked. Benji Kampioka sent off last week means that they don't really have their two best strikers. Adama Sidibe's obviously banned as well. Everything's pointing for me towards a home win. Do you agree?
I think so, and I think so much that Ross County are in my top 5 this weekend. I just cannot see that St Johnstone's travails are all down to Craig Levein. I think there's definitely a problem getting a team together there, a team that's going to play games and win games. Ross County, I don't think they surprised me last week by winning that game against Dundee, because if you remember, they played so well against Aberdeen the previous match and only gone down with that very late Kevin Nisbet winner. So Ross County, I think, will win this game, and I'm surprised and delighted that they're slight odds against. The last time I looked this morning, David, you could get 11-10. I think that might go 10-11, to be perfectly honest. But even at that price, Ross County, like you, I think will win that game.
I was at St Mirren Kilmarnock last weekend, Jim. I've just about recovered a week on. It was VAR drama. It was chaos. It was a brilliant game. St Mirren are back at home. They're up against Hearts. And I'll say it, for the 10th week in a row, Steven Naismith really needs a win.
He really does. He really does. And my spy at St Mirren last week was looking through Paisley tinted spectacles and said that St Mirren didn't turn up for the second half. Whether that's true or not, you'll know better than me, having been at the game, David. But I am going to go for St Mirren to win this game. If Hearts lose this, it'll be their 5th defeat in 6 league games. And you've got to think that Steven Naismith might be under some serious pressure. I think St Mirren will be well up for this. I was speaking to, would you believe, the security man at St Mirren yesterday, who says that they've had a real good ticket uplift since this game was switched back from December. I think the fans will be really up for this. They'll know that Hearts are vulnerable. They'll be right behind their side. And as we've seen in recent weeks, there are goals in this St Mirren team. I think they might score at least once. They might need 2 to beat Hearts. But I think they're worth backing at around 9-5. So St Mirren for me to beat Hearts.
I know you always keep your eye on the lower leagues and you're up to speed with them. Does anything jump out at you at all in Championship, League 1, League 2?
Yeah, I was looking at the Championship. Partick Thistle at home to Dunfermline. Partick, I thought, did well to get a point last week. I think they're well worth a bet at 10-11. I'm going to go against our big boss Roger Hanna with his Ayr United here and tip Queen's Park to maybe get a result at home to Ayr. Queen's Park are very, very good defensively. They could be a bit of value against Ayr United at 9-5 on home turf. And the one I'm interested in, League 1, Cove Rangers, Paul Hartley's side, away to Inverness, who've not been setting the heather on fire this season. Cove Rangers have won their last 2 against Montrose and Kelty. They're a big price up at Inverness. They could win at around 3-1. I think that's worth a very small bet.
And Jim, just finally, you're down at Ayr Racecourse just now. Let's talk about the Gold Cup on Saturday. What a big event in the calendar.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest races in the European calendar. It's unique in the European calendar in that it has 2 consolation races which spin off the Gold Cup. So we have the top 25 runners in the Gold Cup. We then have the next 25 in the Silver Cup. And we even have a Bronze Cup, which is run on the Friday with another 25 runners. And you know, David, after those 75, there's still another 75 that want to have a run as well. So that's how popular the race is at £180,000 prize money for gold, 75 for silver. I think there's a real chance of a Scottish trained winner this year. My original selection was Al Bashir, but that's now a non-runner. It goes to Newbury on Saturday instead. I think there's now a real chance of a Scottish trained winner. Jim Goldie is the man to look at. He's got 2 in the race, American Affair and Jordan Electrics. I just think American Affair could be the gamble of this race, and it could also win.
Jim, thanks a lot for your time and good luck this weekend.
David, thank you.
Thanks as always for joining us on Go Ballistic. Please remember to like, please remember to subscribe, and we will be back next week with all the best reaction from the weekend's action.